Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Audrey from Audrey Approved. Today I'm going to talk about unique memoirs. And I know that by definition memoirs are unique because they're someone's, distinct point of view and opinion, but I feel like there's been a few books that I've read recently that provide a really different perspective on something. And I guess I'll caveat this video with saying that maybe I didn't love any of these books. There's always something about them, whether it be the writing or how I felt about the author, that kind of held me back from saying, I absolutely love these books. But I did think that they were all really interesting and that they were all really unique, and that, again, the perspective that the authors bring was just something that I'd never heard of before or was really hard to get. And so for that reason, I wanted to compile those picks here. And yeah, per usual, if you've read any of these or if I've encouraged you to read any of them, let me know and we can discuss down below. First up, I have Red Roulette, an insider's story of wealth, power, corruption, and vengeance in today's China by Desmond Shum. And this is written by a Chinese billionaire who made a ton of money in, I think, real estate and real estate development, specifically with by working with people in China's Communist Party. And in particular, his wife, or maybe it's his ex-wife now, had a lot of business dealings with China's last president and his wife. Around 5 years ago, his wife was actually disappeared. She was taken into police custody and she hasn't been seen since. And so that's all part of the book blurb. But this book is Desmond Shum's memoir. It covers his time growing up in Hong Kong. He did school in the States, and then he went back to China as an adult. All of his experiences in the industry, how he met his wife and stuff like that. But what's so unique, I think, about this book is that he goes into extreme detail as to the corruption and the business dealings of all of the people that he worked with. And it really kind of blew me away just how much corruption there was. It seemed like every deal, every interaction was a, you scratch my back, I scratch yours kind of moment. And again, the fact that corruption exists doesn't blow me away, but the fact that he's so open with it, I thought was incredibly unique. Now, don't get me wrong, this author is kind of an ass, in my opinion. He's self-aggrandizing. He's got this rag to riches story that I felt was kind of tone deaf. He wants to make money and he's kind of ruthless with it. And I don't know, it as much as that turned me off, again, I was still blown away by how honest he was about I guess China's ruling elite and the people of the red aristocracy. As for his wife, he portrays his wife pretty negatively in this book. She's portrayed as this ruthless businesswoman, and I thought that she was really the most interesting character of this storyline. Apparently she resurfaced from being disappeared to encourage him to not publish this book. Obviously he did anyway. I don't know how much that will help her status as a political prisoner, but in some sense, I don't know if this author cares. But yeah, this is probably the most divisive of the books that I'm talking about because, again, I don't like the author. I don't think it's written that well, but it's so unique in what it reveals and what it tells, and for that I have to mark it as notable. So pivoting to an author that I would actually want to spend some time with, we have Days in the Caucasus by Banine. And Banine is a French writer. She has passed away. I think she passed away 30 years ago. She's a French writer, but she grew up and was born in Azerbaijan. And this was actually the Azerbaijani pick for my Read Around the World project. And at the time, Azerbaijan was under Russian control. So broadly, this covers the events around the Russian Revolution and what that forced her family to do. Her family was incredibly wealthy in Azerbaijan at the early 20th century, I think from oil deposits. But this is a really romantic, really lush set of memories from Banine. Accounting for her time growing up in wealth and in luxury, outside of the capital, I think, Baku of Azerbaijan, at the turn of the 20th century. And there's a lot of really memorable characters. Her grandmother, like many people's grandmothers, is a bit of a hoot. But again, it's told with this romantic flair that I thought really brought the heat and the lushness and the scents and the smells of the countryside and of her childhood to life. It's a bit of a quiet memoir, I'd say. Like, there's obviously references to political happenings, but it mainly focuses on Banine's childhood. And there's this element of sassiness in the writing that I could tell it was a really cool adult sassy woman talking about her childhood. But again, it's about a time and a place that I just knew nothing about. And for that, I really, really enjoyed it. I also thought that the writing was really good. This was published in French. It was only recently, I think in the last few years, translated over to English. So if you're interested in kind of this lush, romantic, really, I don't know, textural kind of memoir, you might enjoy Days in the Caucasus. For the third pick, we have Eat Like a Fish, My Adventures as a Fisherman Turned Restorative Ocean Farmer by Bren Smith. And this is part memoir, part book on popular science, it's part food policy, it's I guess it's a really big call to action. And this author is, or he was a commercial fisherman for a long time, and then he's turned into, I guess, this restorative ocean farmer. And what he's known for is regenerative ocean farming, which is this idea that you take like a 2D plot of ocean land, I guess not land, you take a 2D plot of ocean and then you farm vertically. So you farm in the Z direction, and you farm, you know, different things and different types of food as you go up and down in the water's depths. And so he focuses a lot on seaweed and mollusks and all of that kind of stuff. Now, I've read quite a few books about food and food history and food policy, and then I've also read quite a few books about the ocean, but I've never read books that combine them together. And I think for that, this felt really unique. You know, the author is very much a no-nonsense kind of author, and this comes across in the writing itself. You know, I can tell that this is somebody who gets up in the morning, probably at the crack of dawn, he puts on his rain boots, he goes out on his boat, and you can tell, you know, it's not some stuffy, suited up food policy kind of analyst. This is a guy who gets his hands dirty. You know, I just, again, thought it was a really unique perspective. I didn't know, or I knew a little bit about kind of the negative impacts of commercial farming, but it was unique to get those kinds of insights from somebody who has been in the industry. And then, of course, he is a pioneer of his type of new farming. And so I thought it was just a really interesting kind of collection of thoughts. I do think it is a little bit long maybe, and maybe needs a little bit of an editor, but I enjoyed my time with Eat Like a Fish. And again, this is another author that I would actually want to hang out with. Now, next up is the book that actually made me realize that I wanted to make this video. It's The Devil's Teeth, A True Story of Obsession and Survival Among America's Great White Sharks by Susan Casey. And this is all about the Farallon Islands. Now, if you've ever visited San Francisco and it's been a clear day, and you look due, I guess, west, you'll be able to see, you know, maybe the outline of these jagged peaks. And those are the Farallon Islands, which is this group of really isolated, really small islands off the coast of San Francisco. I think they're maybe 30 miles off the coast from the Golden Gate Bridge. Now, the Farallon Islands are a marine sanctuary. They are meant to be protected, both on the land and in the water around the islands. They're protected for the, I guess, extreme amounts of biodiversity that are part of the flora and the fauna here. Now, again, it is a protected area, which means that you can't visit it. You can't step foot on the Farallon Islands. And so right off the bat, what makes this unique is this is a book about a reporter who managed to get on the islands, both, I would say, legally and not legally, and write a book about, you know, the people who live on the islands, the environment of the islands themselves, the animals, and also the great white sharks that many of the researchers who live on the islands study as part of their life's work. Now, I absolutely loved the history that was part of this. I think that Susan Casey is a really good writer. You know, she manages to make the Farallon Islands, which are incredibly rocky if you've ever seen pictures of them, but she makes them seem almost romantic in the way that she writes about them. I thought she brought the scientists to life. I loved how she talked about great white sharks, the history of great white sharks in the area, and I guess the research that is getting done, and she even, you know, talks about specific great white sharks themselves. And so that part of the book I absolutely loved. It was like a 5-star read for me. What I didn't like about this book was Susan Casey herself, because again, like I referenced, the author I think manages to get on these islands partly through manipulation, and she's got this sense of privilege, and she's got this element of being, I guess, naive and incapable and irresponsible that really rubbed me the wrong way. So this is a unique book, partly in that at different points in the book I wanted to give it both 1 star and 5 star. But I thought it was, again, an incredibly unique perspective because just not that many people visit the Farallon Islands or know much about them at all. I think if you live in the area like me, it's absolutely worth reading to get a little bit of local history. But again, big caveat if you do decide to pick it up. And then lastly, we have Touching the Void by Jo Simpson, which might be the most well-known of these books, if I were to guess. And this is a memoir of the author's time climbing these remote peaks in, I think, the Peruvian Andes in the mid-80s. Jo Simpson is a mountaineer and a mountain climber. Now, in the climb that he describes here, he makes it to the top of this peak with his partner, but on the way down he gets injured. And through a series of different events, his partner is put into a situation where he has the author hanging off of a rope and he has no choice but to cut the rope. So if you ever heard of, I think there's different movies that go through the idea and the suspense of, you know, cutting the rope on a climber. And this is a true life cut the rope moment. Now his partner assumed when he made that slice that he was condemning Jo to death, but obviously, Jo Simpson survived because he read this memoir, and this is his account of what happened after that and how he managed to make his way back to base camp. Now, there are lots of books about mountaineering, and I really like reading them, so if you have Rex, let me know. And there are, you know, within those mountaineering books, there are a lot of really good memoirs, you know, Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. Amazing memoir about mountaineering. He's climbing Mount Everest in that one. And so for those reasons, you know, this book isn't unique, but I think what makes it such a unique perspective is that Jo Simpson goes into deep psychological detail as to what he was thinking and feeling. And let me tell you, if I was in his situation, not that I would ever put myself in that situation, but if I were in that situation, I would have died. I would have given up, game over, done. But somehow Jo Simpson manages to pull into these reserves of like emotional and psychological and physical energy to get himself out of the situation that he is put into. And I think the detail that he goes into that and the deep kind of trauma that he explores makes this a unique mountaineering memoir. Now, this is riddled with mountaineering jargon, so there's lots of words that, you know, mountaineers or climbers will be familiar with. There's a glossary in the back. But I thought it was worth reading. It was a really heart-pounding read. Maybe a little slow at first, but I couldn't put it down towards the end. As always, I hope you've enjoyed. You know, I'm always on the look for more books. So if you have unique memoirs or unique perspectives that you think taught you something new or taught you something different or changed your mind on something, I'd love to know down below. I hope y'all are doing well, and I'll see you next time. Bye.